Today we're going to play around with separating out the movements between the shoulder all the way down into the wrist. So for most of us, these things go together. We don't have a lot of activities that require separating those movements and articulating in a different way. So this will be both an assessment, a way for you to see where movement happens for you or where movement doesn't happen for you. And it will be a corrective. So this will be its own workout, its own exercise, and you'll probably feel it pretty noticeably. So go ahead and just put your arm out to the side, pick an arm, and begin to rotate it. And just see how big you can make that movement. You can even bring your fingers into it. And so you'll notice here my shoulder moves, like my whole scapula, these things on the back, these bones are coming up and over. My upper arm is rotating, my forearm, my wrist, my fingers, yeah. That should probably feel good, just to even do that. All right, so we're gonna piecemeal this out. The first thing I'm gonna have you do is stabilize your shoulder. And really, I'm gonna do what I'm saying is stabilizing your scapula. So you're gonna keep that down. You're not gonna be rolling this whole joint forward, this whole complex. So can you, and a mirror is really useful, and maybe putting a hand here. So if you put a hand here and see how the upper arm moves, but this whole piece isn't coming with it. So do that a few times, just really staying within your range of motion. We often want things to look big when maybe the movement available is not so big. So can you keep this part stable and just be moving the arm? Separating the arm from the shoulder can be a tricky thing. So my arm is coming out at a bit of an angle, so you can play around with that in different positions. Bringing it a little bit more forward, bringing it a little more back, and you will have a different range of motion at those places. So as I go back, it gets harder. Some of that is the, that I'm just fatiguing from doing this. All right, and let that rest. We want to be able to move our arm without having to bring our whole shoulder, our scapula, changing the relationship of the arm to the chest, you know, all of those things by bringing it forward in that way that we did. We also want to be able to keep our upper arm stable and just move the lower arm. So you could probably, and maybe it's easier for you to bring your arm in front of you. If you put your hand like on the eye of your elbow, you know, finger there, can you keep the upper arm stable and just move the wrist? Rotating. So what you'll see is that sometimes what we do is we notice if you're doing funky things with your hand. That's what I'm getting at. So see how you can keep the palm and it reveals that the movement maybe isn't as big as it looks otherwise. So if I move my hand, my fingers, you know, it can really look like this gigantic movement, when in fact, the movement might be kind of small. Notice if you're doing that, let your shoulder relax away from your ear. Just really now you're gonna sort of think about rotating your upper arm down and forward and your forearm back. All right, and relax. So take a moment and just feel the difference, and you might even be able to see the difference if you look at my shoulders or your own. This is higher, yeah. This feels so much heavier, and it actually hits my legs lower. All right, so let's go to the other side. Give the other side some love. So again, the same thing. You're just gonna let it all go, right? You're gonna bring in the movement of the shoulder and the hand and the wrist, and the elbow goes every which way, and really just feeling that rotation. Often we find too that there are parts of us that we want to move, and parts that we don't. So by breaking down the movement, like doing it this way, you might not notice, I don't really move here as much, or I don't move here as much. And it's very useful to have that when we're trying to untangle parts of ourselves. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna keep this shoulder complex relatively stable. You're gonna lift your arm out. Scapula is gonna stay on the back, not coming up and over. So go ahead and begin to think about, and there's a lot less range of motion for me on this side. So my wrist and, lower arm, my forearm are going, but what I'm really thinking about here is the movement of the upper arm. So can I keep my shoulder where it is without, can I keep my shoulder where it is and allow just the arm to do the work? And I'm saying just the arm to do the work. You're going to feel it in your chest. You're going to feel it in your back, because it's all connected. But we're not going to allow it to rotate as well. And maybe you can find a spot where it's like, this is something, and just hang out there. So for me, this coming forward, and then I really can feel the limitation here. All right, and relax. So now we're gonna go ahead on this side and separate out the movement from the upper arm with the lower arm. So again, it can be helpful to keep a hand or finger or something, because things can move easily, right, without you noticing it. So you just, wherever that eye of the elbow is, you're gonna keep it relatively. And you can see, the skin, you can see probably shadows moving, but my upper arm is what's not moving in any really significant way. Again, check in with your hand. Can you keep the palm in line with the forearm so that it's not, your fingers aren't making a show of rotation. Mine wants to bend. See, this is why, I'll check that out. Yeah, that's harder. That's interesting. This is where having a mirror is useful. So I've got the camera. And seeing if the shoulder can stay out of the ear. And relax. And just take a moment and feel, see, yeah, that's a little bit more even. And just feel the weight of the arms and the sensation maybe that you have here. So I'll end with one thing, which is that very often when there's tension in the chest, you have that, it's like, you want to do this. Often it's more about the rotation of the arm. So yeah, do that, right? Because that feels good. But maybe what would be most useful is to play around with rotating, especially here, especially in your upper arm. What would it be to open up the chest that way? Because that creates a whole new relationship when you do that. It gets the scapula back and down, and it isn't about pulling the shoulder blades together, which is really just about masking the tension instead of undoing it. And so this will actually, and even playing around in all different planes, as I said, like coming forward and going back and doing various movements, you'll find a lot more openness, and then you'll begin to have that ability to articulate at different joints in your arms. And so everything's not this big glommed together thing where you have to move your whole shoulder complex every time you want to do anything with your arm. All right, that is it for today.